Time for a plushie commission. And this time it's not a pre-existing character. It's an OC created by the artist Angie Catnecko on Instagram, who commissioned me to make their OC into a doll. So let's get started. So if you couldn't already tell from the beginning of the video, I did a little something different with these eyes. Not only are they different colored, I hand painted that rose onto the button, making it the tiniest rose I have ever painted in my entire life. Which I think came out pretty good, don't you agree? And this doll also marks the first time I've ever had to embroider moles onto a doll's face. It's so refreshing to do OCs as plushies sometimes, because you can get some really cool and interesting stuff, like this right here. So Catalina, the name of the OC, has one leg that is completely exposed bone. Like it's just straight up skeletal. And even though you see me stitching the bones on now, I won't be putting the leg on until later. And here we have her body fully assembled with the base of her pants included. So she is shaping up very nicely. Then I went on ahead and made the base of her shirt off camera to save time because I really want to show off making the vest. And here's where you guys see I also draft all of my own doll patterns. Now if I remember correctly, I did have footage of me cutting this out, but it was completely out of focus, so I just made a transition instead. And now we move on to the embroidery. I sketched it out with a white Prismacolor pencil first, and then chain stitched over top of those lines. And I did all of this to both sides of the vest, which took a long time, but it was worth it. And listening to podcasts really help. I myself am a regular listener of the Ansem Report podcast, which is a Kingdom Hearts podcast. And if any of you from TikTok remember my video on my Sora plushie commission, you will know that I love Kingdom Hearts. Are there any podcasts that you guys enjoy listening to? After that was finished, I glued on 3 matching black buttons made out of felt, and the vest was complete. Honestly, this is some of my finest embroidery work I've ever done. Look how good it came out! I'm so proud of myself! Now we move on to making the rest of her pants. Fun fact for you guys, this is the second time I've ever had to make a pair of chaps for a doll. The first time was for a plushie commission of McCree from Overwatch, but if I remember correctly, doesn't he go by a different name now or something? I don't know, man, I don't play Overwatch. Anyway, unlike the first pair of chaps I've made, these ones are a whole lot more extra, because they have these fancy thingies on them, which I hand-stitched together. Was it a long, arduous process? Yes, but the end result was worth it, because I love the look of top stitching on clothing and leather. And putting them on my dolls just adds a slight level of realism that I really enjoy. And it makes them look that much better. Didn't just do this on the white part, oh no, I did it on the dark blue part too. I did this twice. Actually 4 times, because I had to do this again for the other chap. You know what I mean. And here is a close-up of all the hand stitching done. Doesn't that look nice? After attaching them to the chap bases, it really does enhance it, to me anyway. And now we move on to the legs. So one of the pant legs is shorter and has a little frilly thingy at the bottom of it, so I went on ahead and did that first. And I just now noticed that right here it kind of looks like a mini scrunchie. And then I hand sewed it onto the leg, specifically the bone leg. And after attaching both of the legs, I added the finishing touch to the chaps, which is the black lacing. And I love doing laced up things on dolls because I can make it out of actual embroidery floss, which makes it look more real. And while we're on the subject, we move on to the shoes, as I get to do that to the shoes too. Right after, of course, I do a whole lot more hand stitching. And these are by far the most detailed shoes I've ever had to do for a doll, because normally they're just like little pockets that I put their feet in. But for these guys, I had to actually get a little fancy this time, which is definitely a welcome change of pace. Watch me get another doll commission later on that has even crazier shoes and just blows these guys out of the water. Also, if the shoes in this shot are a little more saturated, that's the point, because I really wanted to show off the stitches, but the lighting just was not doing it with how dark of a blue it was. And after that was taken care of, I finally get to lace something again. And here you get to see me actually do it. Except for the part where I tied the bow at the top because for some reason that footage is missing. I don't know what happened to it. So, sorry about that. Trust me, I am just as miffed about it as you are. And now we hand sew the shoes front and back together and put them on the doll. And here's a nice still image of what the front of the shoe looks like, and ta-da! Just perfect. And now for the jacket, starting off with the base of the jacket. I made it out of the same dark blue felt that the shoes are made of. And once it was sewn together, I top stitched down the seam allowance to reduce bulk, even though that beautiful stitching I did was completely covered up by her arm once I attached it later. But I know it's there. And now you guys know too. And after that was done, I took some more strips of the same blue and glued them onto the ends and the vest parts for style lines and to be more accurate to the image. Look at that, she's getting somewhere! And now we move on to the jacket sleeves. The sleeves were originally ombre, but ombre felt is actually damn near impossible to find, so I was given the liberty to make them just this nice burnt orange color. And since the sleeves are puffy, I used the drawstring method, which is just making really big straight stitches and then just pulling on them to make them puffy at both ends. But I didn't pull on the thread until I got the sleeve onto the arm, so that I didn't have to do any guesswork with how big I needed to make the armhole. And now before I permanently attach them to the arm, I gotta do something else to them. The sleeves also have these two white stripes like the sleeves on a windbreaker. And I achieved that by using my old friend embroidery floss and just chain stitched it all the way across the sleeve. And honestly, these are some of the straightest lines I've ever embroidered. Look at that, they came out so nicely. And after permanently attaching the sleeves to the arms, I permanently attached the arms and put the final touch on there, the sleeve cuffs. And with that, the jacket was complete. But now, the hard part begins. The hardest part of the entire doll, which is gonna involve a lot of yarn. So, Catalina has this one strand of hair sticking out in the center of her face, and I decided to try and replicate that by gluing the yarn onto a shaped base of the felt and just trimming away the excess in order to get it to look like that shape. And honestly, I think it worked the way that I wanted it to. And I glued it to the center of the face and it was perfect. But the yarn's involvement does not stop there because like I said, this is the hard part. For the second time in my entire doll making career, I had to make the doll's hair out of yarn. Why? Because Catalina has pigtails, and I can't braid felt. So here began the long, arduous, 16-hour-long process of hand gluing every single strand of hair to her head. This was a torturously grueling process, but I will admit the end result was definitely worth it. And again, thank you, podcasters, for getting me through this, because I probably would have gone insane otherwise. After all of that, she finally had her full head of glorious hair. And I know it looks ridiculously long, but Catalina already has really long hair that reaches almost to her feet. So I made it extra long just so it didn't look too short because hair gets shorter when you braid it for some reason. And now it's actually time to braid it. Another fun fact for you guys is that this is the second time I've had to make pigtail braids for a doll, the first time being Wednesday Addams, which is one of the dolls that I made at the very start of my ragdoll making shenanigans. So I only have pictures of her and no videos on how I made it. Because I've been doing this gig for about 4 years now? Yeah, 4 years. Man, I can't believe it's been this long already. And I think it's safe to say that my yarn hair braiding skills have definitely improved since then, because this looks so much better than what I did for Wednesday. And now that the braiding is done, it's time to trim these horrendous split ends. I first tried that with my smaller sewing scissors, which didn't end up working, so I just chopped them with my big boy scissors. Look at that, nice and even. And now we move on to something a little simpler, but still also kind of complicated, and that is the sombrero. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce that. Now, Catalina's sombrero has this beautiful embroidery on the brim, and for that I'm going to be using this beautiful metallic gold embroidery floss, which is the same embroidery floss I used for the stripes on Sailor Cosmos' collar. And from here, it was just another long process of embroidering the same design over and over again until it covered the entire brim. I think the gold embroidery floss really highlights how beautiful this design is. Don't you think so too? Finally, all done. So pretty. I love how this came out. And now to glue the rest of the felt to the back of the brim to cover up the knots. This is why I didn't glue it to the front and back before I embroidered it. And for the bottom of the hat, she's not actually going to be wearing it, so I made the bottom of the hat out of a circle of EVA foam just like I did with the brim, and did one side with gray felt and the other side with white. White shows up on the top, and the gray shows on the bottom. And from there, I hot glued the brim onto the bottom of the hat, and then the top part of the hat. I never know what to call that part. And with that, the sombrero was all done, and it is gorgeous. What more can I say? And now for the finishing touches. This is the last stuff that we need before she is entirely done. I'm taking little red squares of felt and turning them into cute little bows. 2 small ones of the same size and 1 big one. The 2 small ones will go on the ends of her pigtails, and the big one is her bow tie that she wears on her shirt. So now we attach the bows to the braids. And then this bow on the front, and she's finally done. Finally, one of the most labor-intensive dolls I've ever made is complete, and she is gorgeous. And cue the glamour shots. Shout out to my granny who let me rummage through her massive fabric hoard and help me find that really cool orange fabric that you see in the background. It matches the doll so nicely, but it also makes it stand out. I hope you guys enjoyed the making of this doll, and if you want to look at the pictures as long as you like, I have this doll posted up on my Instagram, along with pretty much every other doll I've ever made. And with that, I will see you guys later.